Assalamu alaikum, beautiful people. So today we're doing our healthy things that we just have to basically come into the know about, because Fashion by Faith / Iman is about really getting conscious and being aware of what's going on. So for young mothers and young fathers, you have to understand that regardless of age, if it's your first child, you're a young parent. It doesn't matter if you have two. You don't know anything. Okay, I'm sorry. Up until they probably get to like age 18, 19, 20, because every 5 or 10 years is a different stage of a child's life. So like you meet people, maybe sometimes when I have my kids, and my kids are both under the age of 10, when I meet someone who has a kid 10 and over, I learn a lot from them. So we're all kind of, I would say, unless you're talking to someone who has 20-year-olds, you're all kind of new parents in this. So it's really important to support each other. So yeah, definitely understand that. Don't feel insecure. It's really hard to say because, of course, if it's your first one, you feel really like everyone's judging you, and that takes a lot of your energy away as a new parent. And you tend not to focus so well on actually parenting and developing your sense of style of parenting and your confidence as a parent, because you're so busy listening to the moms, the dads, the who said what, and reading this and that. And we can tell you, if we have your second child, like that goes out of the window. You have to develop your style of parenting, and that's by trial and error. There's only so many books in the world that can help you. Of course, Muslims, we have a ton of resources for as far as what your child should mold as, like how the morality of your child should be, how you should teach your child this and that at a young age. But that doesn't always translate when you're actually in a certain situation and you're just struggling with your child. So parenting is, like I said, a very unique aspect of life, and you just go with the flow as much as you can, structure as much as you can, but you have to remember that all things are, Allah has them, and Allah will guide you. So you have to identify. We're always talking about, again, education. Identifying what it is that you as a parent and as a young couple really want to instill in your child. And that is, of course, better done prior to having the children. But again, if it's not really detailed and really discussed prior to having the child, again, it always has to be refreshed. So you don't have to feel insecure that, hey, maybe I didn't plan enough, and I'm just in the midst of this, having this 1 or 2-year-old, and I just feel overwhelmed completely as a young mother or a father. No, don't worry about that as much. In the now, be grateful for what you do know. There's and understand that there, again, the situations will always kind of change, and you will end up, as long as you're confident, you'll end up actually probably performing way better than you were as when you're not confident, of course, in any aspect of life. You need to work on, there's just 2 aspects that, again, I put in really emphasis on, and that's fear and doubt. I think a lot of us have so much of that, especially for the mothers. I'm talking very specifically to the mothers. I think the fathers go through it for the first maybe year or so, but they just kind of like, sometimes they, alhamdulillah, the mom is so great that the guy just goes off and like, oh, I'm a dad now. But no, for the moms, we're always freaking out. Okay, I freak out about almost everything. But fear and doubt really drain you as a mom and drain you as a parent. So you're looking around worried about everything to the max, because the whole concept of taking another human being and being responsible for them, or a couple of human beings and being responsible for them, is a massive concept logically. I like how someone said that you have to be crazy to have one, really crazy to have two, and anything past that is, it's like complete madness. But alhamdulillah, children are so beautiful, and they help us develop so much confidence, and that's what they're really there for us to grow them. But in truth, we grow so much. Motherhood is our children. Heighten all my senses and just help me to develop a new understanding of how my parents were, and have that compassion for all moms. I see mothers that I probably wouldn't think twice about them prior to me having children. Like, oh, well, that person's doing this, they're not a good parent. I didn't really think that, but you always have those kind of the attitude when you're not a parent. But when you actually become a parent, you just humble yourself a little bit more, inshallah. So definitely, and before we even like really deeply discuss, like I said, getting into how to really take care of ourselves and how, to be fashionable, to be healthy and fit as a parent, we need to discuss the taboos and the issues and the health that comes along with it. And so the mental state is really important. We're always emphasizing on the mental state. And so you also have to remember, and this is a big one for me, to take a deep breath and separate your religious goals and your religious aspirations as a parent to your cultural. And that again, these are topics that we will definitely dive into deeper. But to create a healthy you, a healthy mother, of course, we know that paradise lies at the foot of the mother. It means that, you know, you are just the solid rock and the institute of the whole entire home. If the home was a university, you would be the first pillar. You would be the PhD that puts down everything in the books, that just does the curriculum, everything. You are everything to the home, and fear and pressure to us naturally. We're only human. But it's really a lot harder to execute what it is that you need to do as a Muslim, as a believing woman or man when you become a parent, because you're so tied to a cultural aspect that your child needs to look like this or do this or have that. And that goes for traditional cultures from South Asia to parts of Africa and Europe and so on. But and even in America, we have these cultures because, again, when a child goes out and their clothes are not pristine sometimes, and children get dirty every 2 seconds, and you're a new parent, you take a lot of pressure. You're like, oh my God, my child got dirty in like 3 seconds. You're like freaking out at them at the party, and you're actually just adding so much tension to as a whole society. Be more conscious to the way children act and stop trying to force them to act like little adults, because they're not. Our society, when you see a healthy society, children are raised with manners and respect, yes, but that's not by executing their mental health and executing, just completely cutting out who they are as a person. They can only take so much. A 4-year-old can only take so much. So some children are naturally, they want to sit and be pristine for 2 hours and sip tea and go to the opera. Most children do not. And when they go to parties with parents, you know, I always see the young mothers just freaking out. And I was like that too. I was a little bit less like that because I have a huge family and I was raised around babies, and I taught, so teaching, you know, acclimated me to the way children are. But I studied the way the mind develops, so I really understood that a child is not going to be able to do a lot sometimes. And we're going to touch on this before I wrap it up. Again, culture versus religion. We want to just touch on that, and you want to identify what it is that you're really doing to your child. Because sometimes we feel so drained as parents because we're actually putting way too much on the little person and a little too much on ourselves too. So that's something we have to look at within our homes. One of the last things is, of course, like I just said, you have to always kind of dive into what it means to be an educated mother. And that's not you have a degree from some university. Not a father that has a degree from God knows where and works as an engineer. That does nothing for you as a parent. I'm sorry. Any parent will tell you that it doesn't matter what your job is. You're either in this 100% or you're just lost 100%. And most of the time it's just like, depending on what area of life you're talking about with your child, you might be great at communicating with your child at a certain area, and then the other area is like blah. And that's just parenthood. Again, this is a human. They're very unique, and each child is different, and each child needs different things. But moms and dads need to understand that we have to have Islamic education, a religious and faith-based education as to how to raise our child and our children properly. On top of that, you have to have a scientific and real logical explanation to why my child is having fits. Why most of the time a child is having fits? They're not, you know, they're not getting good communication. They're not feeling like they're being heard. There's a lot of small things that you can do to ease into parenting and ease into feeling confident as a parent, inshallah. So I just wanted to touch on this and just say, may Allah bless all the young parents out there who are struggling and striving to do their best, and definitely just make dua for all of us. All of us pray for each other and keep these beautiful community events going on that are helping us to get together and have our children in play groups and such, and rise up. Because when we're around each other, there's a quality of life that we see. Maybe this sister is really soft with her kids in this area. I need to be a little bit more like her. So you have to understand that you are always growing with your child. And that's the best way of putting it. And don't be too hard on them, and definitely don't be too hard on yourself. Assalamu alaikum.